Okay, hello everyone. So we're going to take a look at the information you're going to need to work on your elevation project. I'm going to first go over a ground plan and elevation in a similar form to what you would have for your project. Then I'm going to go over some of the stuff we did in class, and then I'm going to redraw a few things new for you to see the process again. So first, right here, we're looking at a ground plan for our play. It is pretty simple. We have a couch right here in the center, a table on either side, and a chair here. There's one exit up center that is up a couple of steps. It's a bookshelf in the corner, a couple exits, and a window on the side walls that we're not actually going to see in our elevation. So this is something you've already done. This is the ground plan. You probably already made something that looks a lot like that. What I'm going to do is take this and turn it into an elevation that looks like this. So here we can see how tall things are and how wide they are, but not how far up and down stage they are. So down here we can see our chair, table, couch, and other table. That's the same as our chair, our table, our couch, and our other table. In the back here, I have an opening that goes into a hallway. That's this opening up here. And then over here, I've drawn the bookcase, books in it. That's this thing over here. So you can tell the bookcase looks very different in the elevation than it does in the ground plan, because in the plan view, we're looking down at the top of it, and all we see is the top. But in the elevation, we can see how tall it is, how many shelves are there, what's on the shelves, things like that. I've also able to show on the walls what I think the walls look like, so I can show that there's some molding at the top and bottom. I can show that there's pictures hanging on the wall, which I look in my research for the Victorian era. We see that happening quite a bit. So this is the goal. Something along these lines. I've also included a figure, which is always helpful because it gives us a sense of scale. My figure is 6 feet high, 6 squares. That's just easy. You could make your figure 5.5 squares if they were closer to 5'6". It's not a real big difference visually. So this is the sort of goal we're looking for. Okay. So again, ground plan turns into this elevation. Now what we're going to look at here is something we did in class. I'm going to go over it, try to explain it. So the top half of this piece of graph paper, we have drawn down here and here our proscenium arch. That's the opening that the audience can see through. And then I just have 3 walls, wall A, wall B, and wall C. Wall B is parallel to the plaster line. Wall A and wall C are on an angle. So how I would draw these 3 walls and a elevation is to transfer these corners down. So I first have to decide where my stage floor is. That's just something you'll decide for yourself. You want to make sure you leave room to draw the wall. And then you'll have to decide for yourself how tall your walls are. That's not a standard. That's something you can pick. In this case, I've picked a wall that is 10 feet tall, 10 squares tall. And it's the same width, the same height all the way across. So the top is going to be at 10 feet all the way across. So I start over here on this corner, and I just follow the grid line down. Make a point down here at the bottom of the page. Then I come over here to my corner where where wall A and B meet, and I'm going to bring that line down all the way to the bottom. The same over here where wall B and wall C meet. I'm going to just transfer that line right down to the bottom here. And again, for where wall C meets the proscenium arch, transfer that. Once I've transferred those lines down to a point, I can just draw a straight line up to the height of my wall. And this shows me what wall A, B, and C look like in an elevation. Walls A and C are not their full length in this view because they're going on an angle. Okay, let's take a look at the next one here. The next one is one I did, so everything we've done, whether the lines were straight or straight across, it's just been sort of a 3-wall set, and the question came up in class, does it always have to be like that? And the answer is no. So here we have what probably is something closer to what a real set might look like, a number of walls, some on angled, some straight, coming across like that, walls A through G. And then down here on the bottom, we can see what these walls would look like in an elevation. Okay, so I just find where all my corners are. So where wall A meets the proscenium, where wall A meets B, where B meets C, where C meets D, D meets E, E meets F, F meets G, and G meets the proscenium. So I'm just where each of these corners are. And again, now down here in my elevation, I'm going to just decide where my stage floor is. I'm going to draw in my proscenium arch. On this one, I drew the proscenium arch. So I'm just transferring these lines all the way down. And then I'm just deciding for myself how tall is my proscenium arch. Again, we're making up our theater so we can decide how tall it is. I chose 16 feet, so I'm 16 squares up, and then just drawing a line to connect the two lines that show me where my arch is. And so this area in here is the area the audience can see. This is the wall, the proscenium arch that blocks off the view of the rest of the theater backstage. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm deciding how tall my wall is. In this case, I went again with 10 feet, I believe. Then I'm just going to draw a line straight across because all of my walls are the same height. They don't have to be, but in this case, they are. And then I find my corners. So here I have A and B meeting, and I'm just following that line all the way down, making a little mark at the bottom. Where C and D meet, following that line down and marking that, and all the way across, just like I did the first time. There's just more of them. And then I'm just going to bring those lines up and show where the corners are in each of where these walls meet. Now I can't see wall B or wall E because they're going straight up and down stage, so they don't appear in the elevation. In this one, I also added a little bit of furniture. So here we drew our furniture. It's a 2x2 box. I'm just transferring, following the grid line down so it matches up. And then I'm deciding how tall it is. I decided my chair was 3 feet tall. 1, 2, 3. That's a decision you can make for yourself. You can also change the shape if you want. I just went with a simple square chair for the example. So it's 3 feet tall. The seat is 1.5 feet tall. That's pretty standard, 18 inches for where a seat top is or where your seat is. And then there's legs down here. So this is a chair. This is where you sit, and then this is the front of what we call the back of the chair, right? Here I drew one where we can't see the seat, so we're looking at the back. If I was, that chair could be in a different place. Maybe it's down here. Up to downstage doesn't really matter when it comes to putting it in the elevation. That chair so this chair is facing upstage, and I'm just seeing the back without being able to see the seat. And then lastly, we put a chair on an angle. And what we have to do is just find each of the 4 corners and transfer them down, just like we did with the walls. And then that shows us where our chair is. So because it's on the angle, the back is farther stage left than the front is, right? So that shows there. Okay, so that's example of what I hope we get to, and a couple of the things we did during class. Now I've got a couple of theaters drawn here, and I'm going to try to do some of these in process, and hopefully that will help. So the first thing, I've got my theater. It may not be super visible, but I've got a center line drawn, and I've also got a plaster line drawn. And then I've got this very simple square box set. Not necessarily a particularly good set, but it will work for our example. If I wanted to draw what this looks like down here in my elevation, I've drawn the stage floor across the bottom, and then I've drawn the proscenium arch right here. This is the wall, and then this is the hole in it, so that we can see our set. So everything out this way is solid. Okay, so we can't see through those walls. So the first thing I'm going to do is decide how tall my walls are. And I'm going to keep, for this one, I'm going to do the same size walls. On the next one, I'll do different height walls. So I'm going to, again, just go with 10 feet. I'm going to say my wall is 10 feet high, so I'm going to count up from the floor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Counting up 10. So that's 10 feet, and because I know all of my walls are going to be the same height, I can just draw that right across there. And that tells me how far off the ground 10 feet is. So all of my walls can be that size. So the next thing I'm going to look for is any corners I can bring into the elevation to show corners. And the only corners I have are back here, up right and up left, and they are straight in line with my proscenium. So I'm not going to see any of these walls. So if we called this one wall A, and I ran out of table here. If we called this one wall B and this one wall C, wall A and C are not going to show up in my elevation because they're just going straight up and down stage. So I don't have any corners to draw. All I have is this center opening. So what I'll do now is look and see where the try to get a little closer, where the opening ends, and it's right on a grid line. So all I have to do is follow this grid line all the way down, all the way down. I'm going to go all the way to the floor and just make a little mark there so I know that matches up with my ground plan. Then I'm going to do the same thing over here. I've got my line here. I'm going to follow. I also can just count off my center line, 1, 2, 3 squares, and come down here and count off 1, 2, 3 squares like that. So I don't know what that dot is, but here's I think that's just from me using the pen to draw the original drawing. So here's how wide my door is, or my opening. I know it can't be any taller than the wall, but I'm just going to go ahead and draw it all the way up lightly to where the top of my wall is. Like that. And then again, I just have to decide for myself how tall this opening is and whether it has any kind of an unusual shape to it. I'm going to say it's 7 feet high. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And just draw that straight across. Like that. So there's my opening. If I want to get rid of some of these other lines, I can. And so that's really all there is to, well, let's put the top of the walls in. So the walls are this tall. So that's really all there is to this particular set from, I don't have any furniture drawn or anything like that. So I just have the 3 walls. I can't see the 2 side walls, wall A or C, so all I see is B. And all I see is this big open space and then an opening in it. Now the next step would be to look at my research, look at the period I set this in, look for any kind of details that I could add to help give a better idea of what this space looks like, so it doesn't just look like a thing. You know, usually the houses in this period and the rooms have a lot of molding, so usually doors have molding. Oftentimes there's molding around the bottom. We call that a baseboard. Usually it's got a little bit of a decoration near the top of it. Up here near the top of the wall, there's probably some kind of molding. usually that is called crown molding. So it's like a crown. It's at the top of the wall, and it has some little details to it like that. So already just from that, I've already made this look a little bit more like a real wall, right? Adding a little bit of molding and details like that. The other thing I know about the Victorian era is they like to hang, they like to have it really crowded. They like to show have wallpaper as well. We're not going to try to draw wallpaper right now, but we can hang some pictures. So, and this is just me doing a little design work on my own. There's no rules to this. I'm just creating some boxes that I imagine are pictures. Maybe they're different sizes, hung at different heights. Maybe over here we've got a couple of small ones hung on the same row. Maybe here there's one great big painting. Over here. And then maybe they've got one more kind of smaller one over here. Okay, so right now I'm just showing just these boxes. And again, this is just me designing things. There's nothing in the ground plan to tell me where these are. This is just me making some design choices based on my research. These things normally will have a frame on them. Oops, not that far. More like up here. That's better. So we can make our frames look kind of fancy. Like that. Oops, I used the wrong one again. There we go. We got something there. 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 I might, if I was doing this as a project I was turning in, I might take a little more time making these look good. But for the sake of you not having to watch me for an hour, I'm